Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Legal Marketing Live. I'm Daniel Decker, partner here at Spotlight Branding, joined again by Mark Siniglia. Excited to have you guys with us here. Today we're going to talk about law firm websites, but we're going to take a slightly different angle. We're going to talk about what not to do with your law firm website. So this is coming from a place where our company has launched and created a couple hundred lawyer websites for clients around the country. I've personally reviewed thousands. Mark, I'm sure you can say the same. We've seen a whole lot of law firm websites, and today we're going to come to you with some of our top observations of what not to do. So I've got two pet peeves that I'm going to talk about. Mark's got two that he's going to bring up. Hopefully you guys can apply this information, take a look at your own website, see if you're making any of these mistakes, and build an even better website from there. So Mark, take it away. What's your number one pet peeve in law firm websites?
My number one pet peeve on a law firm website is trying to be unique, or like trying to have like just a really creative design and sacrificing functionality in place of it, right? I just have seen plenty of situations where your goal for your website is that it looks really cool or really creative, or like, you know, pick your word, cool, creative, unique, and not that it shouldn't. I mean, right? I mean, I think you want it, but your primary aim, I think, should be that it's functional. And by functional, I don't mean that it works. I mean like strategy. You know,
right.
You know, like, does it properly communicate what you do? Are things located in a good spot? And I'll talk about that in my second pet peeve. But you know, I've been on calls where we're looking at web designs and someone's like, oh, I want this to be shorter. I don't want this thing to be this big. And don't let design dictate strategy. It should honestly be the other way around. People don't come to your website to look for the coolest looking website. They come there to look for the best attorney to solve their problems. So, you know, don't try to have, so my pet peeve and all is having a unique website for the sake of being unique. That's honestly not a good reason.
So if you could say, you mentioned functionality and getting the job done. Just quick bullet points. What are the key things that the website should try to accomplish? Not being unique, as you just pointed out.
And I think, I don't think it's necessarily this should go here and that should go there and it should look like this. I think it's kind of like puzzle pieces, key elements. I think that a website needs to clearly communicate what you do. I think it needs to help people know if they're in the right place or not, and I think it really needs to make them want to work with you. So, like, it's more about, does the design either not have these things? Like, for example, I've talked to people who want like a really minimal design, but part of that problem is that you kind of get rid of a lot of these pieces that would actually help people get their questions answered. Or you have a complicated design and it's all kind of hard to find, and you know, so that's where, whether it's a minimal design or a complex design, you know, those are the kind of things that you don't want to put first.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great point. So then, my first pet peeve here somewhat ties into yours, I guess, a little bit, which is, do not write your website content primarily for search engines. Okay, we've touched on this point before, but so often, I cannot tell you how often I see a law firm website and they've stuffed certain keywords into their content, into their headlines, solely for the purpose of moving up Google's rankings for those phrases. So, classic example, let's say you're a law firm here in Charlotte and you do DUI law. So maybe your search phrase is Charlotte DUI attorney. And then what happens is, rather than writing content for, you know, parents who are freaking out because their kid just got arrested for a DUI and they're worried that he just ruined his life, or maybe you're a professional and you just got arrested for a DUI and you're worried that you're going to get fired and like huge repercussions, right? Significant stuff. But rather than focusing on that, so many law firms just stick that keyword in there, Charlotte DUI attorney. So it's like, call our Charlotte DUI attorney today, and rather than creating any of that emotional connection, rather than educating your potential clients so you know what's next, so you know what to expect, so you know what you need to do to turn your life back around, you work with some company who doesn't know anything about creating an emotional connection or educating visitors to your website. They just know what's the optimal keyword density and how often should I use each of those phrases. And that is the absolute wrong approach. It might make an incremental difference in your Google rankings, sure. Like maybe that approach will help you move up from the fourth page to the top of or to the bottom of the third page. But then what happens when someone clicks through to the website and the content that they read does not engage them in any way, shape, or form? So you can absolutely think about SEO after you've written the bulk of the content. And sure, if there's some key phrases you need to get in there, do it. But don't make that where you start when it comes to website content.
No, and I think kind of feel like what you're saying is it's so funny because when you step back and think about it, a website is obviously meant for the consumer,
right,
or the potential client, right? So go about your website that way.
Yeah, exactly.
But what does happen too often is, and it's not just lawyers, it's a lot of industries, you start putting a website and the first question you ask yourself is, what does Google want?
Yeah.
You don't ask yourself, what does my potential client want?
It's not the lawyer's fault out there, right? Sadly, it's our industry's fault. Like most internet marketers out there, they just equate internet marketing with SEO. And we talk about this all the time. They're not actually marketers. They're engineers who are working hard to crack this mathematical equation to manipulate Google search results. But they're not marketers. And yes, again, there's value in getting people to your website, absolutely. But it's critical that once they get there, that they understand that you're the person that can help them, that they trust you, that they have an emotional connection. And so when you start your content in that place rather than SEO, you're in a much better place. So that drives me nuts.
I'll save my thoughts on our competitors and our colleagues for an episode solely dedicated to that.
Yeah, and again, there's nothing wrong with the SEO. We're not knocking anybody. It's just the wrong place to start when it comes to website
Absolutely,
content.
absolutely. So my next pet peeve is making key information hard to find. It starts with your contact information. Your phone number should be, at the top of the screen, above your main menu. It should be at least reasonably sized. It shouldn't be hard to find. And even if you can check that box off, does your homepage have a contact form? Is it obvious to figure out how to contact you? And then from there, what kind of resources do you have for people? Whether it be blogs, FAQs, maybe some videos, some free resources, whatever things you have to kind of help people, because your website is kind of like an interactive brochure, right? And so it's just making these things hard to find, right? Everything from contact information or how to contact you, where your office is located, all the way to resources that kind of help me get a better idea of what I need to do or if I'm in the right place. And I just see too many websites where these things either are non-existent or they're just hard to find.
Well, I heard a stat, I don't remember the exact details, but basically when someone lands on a website, within 5 seconds, it's not a long time, within 3 to 5 seconds, they make the decision of whether they're going to stick around or not. So if to your point, if the key information they're looking for is buried, if they don't see it with their quick initial scan, they're gone. I think that's kind of your point.
And real quick, I want to say too, just because you feel like you can check off one or two of the things I just said, make sure you hear the rest of it. Just because you have a contact form and your phone number at the top, well, are you also making it easier for people to access resources such as FAQs or your blogs? Or, better yet, one of my favorites is, I have all those things in my main menu. I've got blog in my main menu. I've got a contact button in my main menu. One of the rules of thumb I like to go after is every single piece of key information or a key resource should have at least 2 ways to get to it.
That's
right. So if you have a blog in your main menu, maybe you also have somewhere on your homepage the latest blog.
Yeah.
Or if you have all your contact info on your contact page, but you should also put the phone number at the top, maybe the address too. At the very least, a lot of people know to scroll to the bottom of the page to get an address. And so I think key resources, key information, a good rule of thumb is try to have either two places they exist or 2 ways to get to them.
Makes a lot of sense. I think another point kind of along those lines is so many people take a passive approach, like when they're designing their own website, and they're like, well, I'll just kind of put all this information out here. My website visitors, they'll find what they're looking for. Well, number one, no, they probably won't if they don't see it right away. But then, more importantly, take an active role in this. What do you want them to see? Be strategic. Don't.
Kind of comes
you
back
want
to the first
take
thing,
them
too.
On a journey. Exactly. Right. So you should know what are the most effective pieces of content on your website. What are the most, maybe it's the resource you're giving away, maybe it's your videos where you're answering questions, whatever it actually is, you should be deliberate about that and about drawing attention to those key things. What do you want? When someone lands on your website, if they go through these 3 pages, which 3 pages are the best for them to see in order to make it likely that they're going to retain you. At some
Well,
point.
what's really interesting about that too, let me just add too, is that kind of what I was saying earlier about design. Like one of the little sayings I like to say is, don't let design dictate strategy, let strategy dictate design.
Right.
I think I said that earlier, but a key part of that is that whether you're building your website yourself, fingers crossed, we'll see how that goes. Or if you're hiring a company. I mean, we've talked about this before, and our goal of this episode is certainly not to badmouth others in the industry. There are plenty of great companies out there, but the truth is, a lot of website companies are good designers. They're not good strategists. Right? And if your goal is to have strategy dictate design, you need to work with someone or work with a company who's going to help first figure out the website strategy. And that's kind of to your point.
Yeah.
What things should I have? Where should they go?
Yeah.
So I think part of being able to follow both those pieces of advice is also in who's doing your website.
Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. Great points. All right, so moving on to my second pet peeve here, which it's funny that you have to say this anymore, but you do, and it is, please make your law firm website mobile friendly. There are just way too many old school websites out there that don't work on a smartphone, on an iPhone, or whatever, and that's a huge problem. Some data I saw, I think it was towards the end of last year, which is that just over 50% now of website traffic is on a mobile device.
Right.
So a full 50% of visitors to your website, on average, maybe it's more, maybe it's less for you, but are on a smartphone or a tablet. And so if your website is not optimized for that surface and the key information is not showing up in the right place, well, you're missing out on a huge amount of potential business. That's only part of the equation. The second part is that just under half of Google searches, or I don't think it was Google specific, it's just under half of search engine like queries in general happen on a smartphone now. And here's why that matters, because Google and most other leading search engines know whether or not your website is search engine friendly. Like they have your website when they index it, they tag it as mobile friendly or not.
Right.
And if they tag it as not mobile friendly, it's not even going to show up in the search results when someone runs a search that could show up your firm. So you're literally missing out on like half of the potential search traffic just by not having a mobile-friendly website. Not to mention,
or at least can be penalized.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
pushed down.
Yeah, and more, Google's literally not including it. I was just reading something the other day.
Wow.
So it's number one, they're not going to find it, and number two, if they do find it on their mobile device, but it's not mobile friendly, they're not going to have the right experience.
No,
and so talk a little bit about, because we've talked about this
Yeah.
before. It doesn't mean you have to. It's not this whole like mystical thing of, oh, I need to create a whole new mobile friendly website.
That's what I was going to ask you
Yeah.
about. Yeah, we're not. I think some people out there still think that they need to create a second version of their site, right? I mean, that's not what we're saying.
Right? No, not at all, right? And you can talk about this a little bit because this is kind of one of your areas,
Yeah.
but it's responsive.
That's the key word. Yeah, I mean, if you've heard that word, mobile responsive, that's kind of the new terminology, because what it literally means is that your website, as you see it on a desktop computer, on a laptop, when you put it on a mobile device, it literally begins to respond to its new environment. It like the sizing and where everything's located literally moves around and responds to the new size of the screen that it's on. That's why they call it mobile responsive. As we're back in the day, you would have to create like a separate mobile site that was literally built to work on mobile. Right. But now, good website companies who know what they're doing will build your one website in a way that everything you see on the desktop or on the laptop, you still see on a tablet or on a phone. But it just kind of resizes and moves around. Yeah. And that should be a standard thing these days. But you don't not do it, and don't get sucked in to having a second mobile website.
Exactly. I think that's the bottom line, is that any competent website company these days is going to create a mobile responsive site for you. So go check your site out on your iPhone, and if it's not, you need to talk to your web designer about that. And if it's an older site, if it's older than 5 years, there's a pretty darn good chance that it's not going to be very well optimized. So definitely suggest that you guys take a look at that, because again, half of the traffic to your website is on a mobile device, and half of the searches that could send traffic to your website you won't even show up if you're not mobile friendly. So can't go without it. It's the year 2017. You got to be mobile friendly. So all right, I think that's it, right? You got two, I got two.
That's it.
Perfect. Okay, so let's just recap real quick. So my top two pet peeves: one, do not write your web content primarily for the search engines. Write it for your actual human audience. And number two, please make your website mobile friendly. It's 2017. So many people are on their phones. Make it mobile friendly. Mark, you want to recap yours?
Absolutely. Don't build a website designed that is unique for the sake of being unique. Don't sacrifice strategy at the altar of uniqueness and creativeness. The second thing is don't make key information and key resources hard to find.
Awesome. All right, perfect. So those are some action items. That's what not to do. We also just put in our comments here an infographic that will give you some proactive tips, what you can do to create an awesome website, and we'll obviously talk more about that in the future. But for now, if you can avoid those 4 things, you've got a big leg up on the competition, and you're going to be in a great spot. So thank you guys for joining us, Legal Marketing Live, and we will see you next Thursday at 12:30.